more business boosting content, subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell, and like our posts.
All right, a very big welcome. Webinar Wednesday has arrived once again, and today is super exciting. It's an incredible webinar, and of course, the topic for the morning is funding readiness and capital matching, powered by the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, the JSE. And importantly, Cleola Kunene is the head of SME Development at the JSE, and in her current role, Cleola is responsible for the development of SME accelerator solutions and platforms, providing SME solutions enhancement and the execution of SME strategy and, of course, development. Cleola serves on the steerco for the SA Startup Act and serves as an independent investment committee director for 2 funds. Cleola, please join me on stage. This is going to be awe-inspiring.
Good morning, Mike, and good morning to all our entrepreneurs.
Yes, absolutely, Cleola. It's wonderful to have you on board, and you're super experienced and highly talented in this area. And you know, we spoke earlier off screen, and you know, it's such an important topic, and we can never talk. We can never talk too much about it, and of course, but today's a very different angle, which excites me a great deal. But before we get into it, I just want to say to all our attendees from all over, a very big welcome. Tell us where you're from, and of course, importantly, if you've got any questions, there's Panache from Durban. If you've got any questions, please pop them onto the chat box. And often the chat box goes at lightning speed, so sometimes we can't get all your questions answered. Pop them to the NSBC team, info@nsbc.africa, and I'll make sure that we can answer your questions in good time. And then, of course, Boykanyo from Randfontein, West Rand of Gauteng, welcome on board. Sebi from Durban. Durban's doing nicely this morning, Cleola, look at that. But always amazing to see. You know, we know the webinar series, and of course technology now, we can host anybody from anywhere, so it's wonderful to see, and I can see many of the same names popping up again, as been doing for many months. But clearly, you know, our webinar series, Webinar Wednesday, is regarded now as one of the biggest webinar series globally, and I think it's because of the dire need for inspiration, education around all key factors about building a business. And I know this is where you fit in very seriously into that factor of building businesses throughout the country. But Cleola, welcome, and thanks for joining, and we're really excited to have you on board, and you're doing well on your side?
Amazing. We're doing great work with phenomenal companies. So, you know, that's exactly as it should be. That's what my purpose and definitely my calling, even as an individual. And as the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, as the JSE, we are solely, we really understand that the need for development support, and that is why we're lending our muscle, our voice, and our resources behind our entrepreneurs and our SMEs, and making sure that they grow.
Absolutely. You know, we always say that it's extremely important in cultivating a landscape of entrepreneurship, to promote and encourage entrepreneurship as a viable career option, because we know that there are few jobs of the future, and one of the key solutions for that is, of course, entrepreneurship. But on the other side, we've got to make sure that those who have started their business stay in business, grow, so they can employ others. So there's a double-edged sword there, which is extremely important, and I know you play a big role in that. So thank you for being here. Cleola, I've got a couple of questions to kick off for the morning, and I just want to let all our attendees know that you will be sent the replay. The restream on the replay on YouTube will live indefinitely. So if you miss some key points, or if you want to just have another look or 2 more times, you will be sent the replay so that you can, of course, pay more attention in your own time outside of this webinar. So Cleola, I've got a couple of questions. Can you tell us about the JSE's focus on supporting the economy and what you are doing in the SME space?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. So When people think of the JSE, they think large enterprises, of course, because that is what stock exchanges do. It's about trading and funding for large enterprises, and of course medium enterprises as well, because we both have Altex and our main board. But if you look at fundamentally the need for growth in terms of our economy, we understand that as a JSE that our economy cannot grow without seeing more fast track growth of our SMEs. So we took a decision a couple of years ago to really, not in an ESD manner, because we do have a very great ESD program, but really around what can we do to help shift the tide for companies to really grow, fast track growth. So we started an accelerator a couple of years ago, and the accelerator has done significantly well. It was geared towards developing medium-sized companies. If you look at it, we have about 25,000 to 45,000 medium-sized companies, and you don't see a lot of those companies shift from medium to large. If you can actually count the number of companies over the past 10 years, 20, 15 years even, that have really scaled to large enterprises, right? And when we talk large, we talk about your blue chip companies. So a blue chip, if you even an example like Capitec, for instance, Capitec is a very good example of a company that went into a space in the banking space from small to large very fast, and in terms of scaling very fast. So we want to see more of those types of companies, and that's what we've tried to enable. And we've seen companies grow double digits on average. We've seen a 53% revenue growth with the companies that we've worked with, and including job creation of over 30%. Now, in addition, what we've done is really worked with the ecosystem and tried to convene the ecosystem around other solutions where there are gaps, because we're not trying to compete in this space with anyone that's incubating, etc. We're really saying we're a convener. We as the JSE know that we can do good work with everyone. So we've worked with government, we've worked with other development organizations, and we've worked especially with funders. And we then developed also funding readiness, and we worked last year specifically in the Western Cape to get over 100 companies funding ready, right? And why is funding readiness important? Because we see a lot of companies do not get access to funding. In South Africa, the statistic is very low. We're an average of 37% of companies that try and get access to funding get funding, and 37% is very low. So when we did this program, both funding readiness and capital matching, and we had a capital matching initiative last year November where we brought together about 15 funders, and we raised over 200 million rand for companies and had a 62% success rate. Now, that is significantly higher than the country average. So we see that the recipe that we used really worked, and the way that we worked with the entire ecosystem, not in isolation as the JSE, but really bringing everybody together and making it easier for both the companies and the funders was a recipe for success. And so we're repeating that this year, which is why I'm here to talk about that a little bit more with the SMEs.
Absolutely. And now, clearly, with the focus on accelerating medium-sized companies working, why have you focused on funding readiness and capital matching?
Because the gap between getting to medium-sized companies is still too large. And what is that gap? Fundamentally, when you look at scaling and fast-tracking scaling, you need funding. And I'll use a key example. A lot of companies, when they have ideas, come to me and say, oh, I've got an idea, I need funding. And they don't necessarily even understand what type of funding is relevant for the stage of their business. If you look at, for instance, VCs look at, and there's not a lot of VC funding going around, right? But VC funding, and which is venture capital, is about companies that are that are scaling very fast, that are high growth. So if you're a high growth company, so for instance, a high growth tech company, VC might be just what you need. But even if you are getting VC, companies don't even understand that there's different, like in terms of different funding rounds, that, a seed, pre-seed is about your angel, your friends, your family, or bootstrapping. But seed, even if you are able to get seed, how much should you raise? When should you raise? And are you geared in terms of your market plan and your market access? And do you have sufficient funding? And are you geared to and setting yourself up for success to scale fast enough and not to create a lull in your business, or do you have sufficient funds for the next round of funding to get to Series A? So even those types of questions, it's not just about funding in itself, but it's about understanding the funding landscape, understanding what is relevant for your business, and understanding who does what and how can you engage with them in a way that actually speaks their language as well as your own, and telling your story in a way that makes sense. Numbers, the market opportunity, as well as your growth story. And more importantly, do you understand it?
Okay. Now, Cleola, tell us more about the process and why it works so well.
So when we started the process last year, and we're trying to continuously refine it, as with everything, it's evolutionary. We spoke with a lot of companies directly, and we spent a lot of face time with companies, understanding why they're not getting access to funding. There were some phenomenal businesses that went, and applied for debt, equity, different solutions, but just didn't get access to funding. And when it got down to it, it was a few key things that we had to work on with the companies. One was understanding, again, what is right for their business and the stage of their growth, whether if they are going to go into getting access to funding, also how much their business and growth, right? How long? Raise too little and you're going to, which takes a lot of money, time, and effort. And by the way, don't get it confused. Funding and capital raising is not like you see on Shark Tank. This is not an easy process. It's not a quick process where you just present and somebody's like, oh, I'm going to give you money. There's due diligence involved, which means, again, you need to have your ducks in order. You need to have your documentation in order. You need to understand what type of documentation is required for which funding type, right? For instance, if you are looking at cash flow, how much cash flow do you need? You know what I mean? What says to someone that you can afford the debt that you're asking for? Or if you're looking for purchase order financing, what is required for purchase order financing? And then more importantly, credibility. How do you ensure that your business and the story that you tell is authentic and is credible and is true, so that there is trust, not just in you as an entrepreneur, but in terms of your business?
Absolutely, Cleola. There's nothing more, from our perspective and our experience, like you've just mentioned, funding readiness is an absolute priority. And the big problem is that, you can't wait until you need funding to become funding ready, because it's still going to take you a significant amount of time to become funding ready. So we've always suggested to our business owners throughout the country is that do the exercise now, get funding ready, create that folder in the cloud, and get all those documents ready, and update your management accounts every month. So when the time comes and you need it, even if you never need funding, it's a wonderful exercise. It just shows your attitude towards your business. So imperative to become funding ready now, and make sure that when the time comes, you can access funding because you've got all your documentation. And also, if you have all that documentation in order, it's just going to impress the potential funder more than anything else. So my plea to, of course, SMEs out there is to become funding ready now and prepare the time that when you need to get funding. That's important. Now,
Yes.
Cleola, what are the key do's and don'ts for companies that want funding?
The key do's, as I said, is authenticity and credibility. I've seen companies try and tell a cook the books, tell a fake story, and the industry is too small. You don't want to go in with something that's not accurate, because if you lose, right? Number two is, in terms of don'ts, is don't try and raise funding too soon. If you're not ready to raise capital, rather go for, in terms of bootstrapping, etc. Because remember, you're bringing basically someone into the fold of your business, right? It's not a simple process, and it always comes with something, right? There's no such thing as free money. Even if you think, okay, I want grant funding, even grant funding is not free money. So there's an accountability and a requirement when you look for funding. So make sure that you as a business are ready for funding. I think one of the key do's is understand what is the right type of funding for your business as well as what you're trying to achieve, right? Not all funding is equal, and not all funding is right for you. right? Just because it worked for another business does not mean that it's right for you. I think inform yourself. Inform yourself in terms of what's required legally. Inform yourself in terms of what what do these things mean? How does it bind you? What are you accountable for? And what happens if things go wrong? So information education is critical in terms of going into funding. It's not just about getting funding ready, but it's understanding what it's going to do for your business once you do get the funding. What does it mean in terms of your growth story? And how are you going to use the money? Most companies will tell you, I need it for marketing. Marketing what? Marketing to whom? How are you going to ensure that that money is optimized to actually achieve what you're trying to achieve? And also, in addition to that, how are you going to ensure that it's going to carry you until your next funding round, right?
Okay, interesting. And also, borrow for the right reason. And I think you alluded to that. And we, a lot of people borrow for the wrong reason, and they don't have a plan how they're going to use that funding. And you can only borrow once, and once that money is gone, it's kind of all over. So borrow for the right reason. Now,
Exactly.
the final question I have for you, Cleola, where can companies register if they want to be matched to funders? That's hugely important.
So before we go into the final question, I just want to quickly just talk a little bit about the capital matching process a little bit more. So we obviously have funding readiness, but in terms of our capital matching journey, we do have a capital matching series roadshow that's rolling out in October to November. And I think it's important for companies to understand that funding readiness is critical, but for you to actually be part of the capital matching, we do also look at if you are funding ready. So we would like companies obviously to register for the capital matching and participate. We'll be in a few provinces, but generally register, because we try and roll out, and we're going to be rolling this out eventually nationally as the JSE. We have various funders there that participate. We have the banks, we have microfinanciers, we have VCs on board, we have DFIs. So everybody basically is there in terms of funders, and companies, when they do participate in the capital matching, will be matched with an average of 4 funders that's relevant for their specific funding needs. So we don't match you. For instance, if you are specifically looking for purchase order financing or a particular type of debt financing, we won't match you with a VC, for instance. So it will be matched based on your business requirements. But then, we do encourage companies to also participate in the funding readiness so that they do understand what's required. We also understand what they have and don't have, and we can guide accordingly in terms of the gaps. And we spend a lot of time, face-to-face time with companies, getting them pitch ready as well. And that is very important, because the quality of telling your story accurately and telling your growth story and understanding your numbers in terms of your growth story and your forecast is critical to getting access to that funding. In terms of then your question around where companies can go, obviously at the JSE, we have a program called SME Rise. So you can search on the JSE website, SME Rise, and we'll also share the link in the chat. But it's JSE Capital Matching, and all companies are welcome to register. We will provide then further information and really just give you context in terms of what's going to be happening. I see that the link is up in the chat. We'll give context in terms of what's happening, when the roadshow dates are happening, which provinces it will happen in. But the funding readiness will both be available online throughout the year, as well as live Q&A sessions. I also want to mention that what we have done, which is very important for the capital matching live sessions, is that
Whoops, I think we've lost Cleola for a second, but she's
I'm
back.
back.
There we go.
I just want to mention that we do bring in people in terms of experts for the Q&As, the people that actually deal with the funders. And when we do have the capital matching, we also have the technical decision makers there. So they will be able to immediately tell you yes or no, or what's missing for them to continue forward with your application.
Okay, so please, to all our attendees, there's the link on there. Please go to the link. And we have a question for Stolly on the chat there, Cleola. Can a CC be funded?
I think there's funding available for all types of organization. The question is not about the organization type, because I mean, even what do you call it? Sorry, I'm forgetting the structures now, but all types of fundings, different types of companies can be funded. However, the question around which stage your business is in, whether your business is funding ready, is more important than the structure of your company.
Okay, so it doesn't matter on the entity, it's on really what you deliver, the documentation and your affordability levels and your all those kind of factors, as opposed to if you're a PTY limited or a CC or a sole proprietor. That's not the criteria. The criteria is the information provided, getting funding ready, I would imagine. So absolutely. And yeah, Cleola, that's insightful. So please, if there's anything, attendees out there, if you need to get hold of the JSE, pop an email, info@nsbc.africa to our team, and we can assist you. Or if there are any other, there is the email address, or if there are any other questions that you would like Cleola to ask, please pop those questions to us, and we will of course ask Cleola in a time to assist us with that. But Cleola, this is a long conversation. I know that
lots of questions. It's popping up wild and crazy.
Yeah, they're going. This is the speed of light. But of course,
Yes.
and also to the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, they're a big partner of the National Small Business Chamber. We're truly grateful for that. It's because of organizations and people like you, we can do what we do, to really have no agenda but to help SMEs survive and thrive in the landscape out there. So thank you, Sifo. Wow, what an informative session. And I know that we can go on and on, but this is not the last time we talk to Cleola. She will also be at the Business Show Africa in September. And of course, if to all our attendees out there, if you haven't registered for the Business Show Africa September, I can urge you, now's the time to do that. Access to finance will be a big area at the Business Show, and all the major players will be there. So please go to the website. If our team can pop on the website for the Business Show Africa, it will be great. And there it is. Come and get your free ticket to the Business Show, businessshow.africa, register. And but of course, before the Business Show, there's a lot we're going to still do over the next few months. So to you, Cleola, I don't know if you've got a nice closing message for us.
No, absolutely. I think your entrepreneurs are also welcome to email us at accelerate@jsc.co.za. And of course, go into the JSE website. I will definitely be at Business Africa speaking about funding readiness, and the rest of the team will be there. We also have, different solutions and other solutions for entrepreneurs, and including companies that are ready to scale internationally. That's a core focus of ours. So if you are, focused on growth, we are focused on growth, and we would love to work with you.
Well, this has been called a beautiful session. Look in the chat there, Cleola. And it is insightful. Thank you so much for your time, and to the JSE, truly grateful. And to all our attendees, of course, if without our attendees, we can't do what we do. So thank you for being part of this informative session, insightful. And stay close to us. We'll be back again soon, and have a wonderful day. Thank you all. Thank you, Cleola.
Thank you.